Sometimes the real reason you're not growing your business, you're not getting those higher profile clients, you're not getting invited to those bigger stages has nothing to do with how qualified you are and everything to do with how visible you are. You are listening to Amplify Your Success podcast, episode 376. And today we're going to talk about the 3 most common visibility barriers that are keeping experts just like you from getting more opportunities and more clients. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It is your host, Melanie Benson. Today, I want to talk about something that's been coming up so much with guests on Amplify Your Success here and the 100K Authority Accelerator clients as they're joining the program. And that is the barriers they're getting in the way of profitable visibility. That's the kind of visibility that doesn't just suck up all your time and energy, but is actually producing meaningful results. That visibility is helping you attract really amazing clients. It's getting you on the radar of some of the leaders in your industry, leading to speaking invitations or more invitations to get on podcasts. And it's getting you media attention. You can see where I'm going with this, right? Visibility, when done well, should be one of your top channels of leads and opportunities. But what's happening, and I'm hearing this more and more, is really talented experts are actually holding themselves back. They're actually making choices that keep them invisible to the very opportunities that are going to move the needle for them. And I know what you're thinking. It's like, Melanie, I know I should be visible, but, and that whatever happens behind that but is why some of the things in your business aren't working better. Now, if you've been around a little bit, I talk about $1 million visibility, and that's because the visibility that I've learned to generate since the beginning, and I've been doing this almost 24 years now, it leads to really amazing clients. In the first 4 years that I did this, it led to way over $1 million in business, and it continues to perform for me over and over and over again. Now I tend to lean more into the virtual events and podcasts. The market's changed a lot, and today we have some unique barriers that have entered into our marketplace. We've got new challenges with email deliverability. Social media is always changing the algorithms and the reach. And so we can't necessarily rely on one channel, one strategy to bring us clients and opportunity. And so you need to have a multifaceted approach. I truly believe that what's happening in the podcast industry is going to continue to expand opportunity for people who have an expertise, and they sell that wisdom and expertise and that information out to the world. And so that's probably you if you're here listening. Now, let's talk about the barriers, and then I'm going to share with you some steps to take if you recognize that one of these barriers is up for you. And it might surprise you how many just super amazing and very talented experts have not tapped into a visibility strategy that performs for them. And they are relying on a third channel that is also very unpredictable, and that's referrals. Okay, so I mentioned email marketing is changing. It's not as, not everybody is able to leverage email marketing. There's a lot of moving parts to making it work well. We talked about social media, which I do believe social media continues to be very important. Both of these have to be done, but you can't solely rely on it. And the third one is referrals. I still think that referrals will always be a very solid way to attract great clients, but there's a couple of deeper problems with relying on referrals. First of all, referrals are not always qualified. They're just maybe going to shorten the path for somebody to reach out to you. But in my experience, a lot of referrals are not qualified referrals. They're not qualified leads. So that doesn't necessarily guarantee you're getting a great client. And the second thing that happens is you can't always predict and you can't control when referrals come in. So you need a way to stay present and visible to potential clients and opportunity. So what is keeping you from being more visible? Because I know you know this is important. Well, in my experience, coaching so many amazing experts and humans is it starts with there's some deep unresolved conflict. Now, for many years now, I've integrated mindset and the inner workings of our mind into the work I do because our mind is a very powerful part of what drives success. And if our mind has pieces of us that are at war, then you're going to put the brakes on instead of take action towards your goals. And in internal conflict, I call it, is one of the three common fears and constricts, something that's constricted inside of you that holds you back from doing what needs to be done or what could be done. And here's how conflict shows up with visibility. So you hear about visibility, but there's probably this internal dialogue or some like invisible wall that holds you back. And you might be thinking to yourself things like, well, okay, I'm not sure I'm ready for what will happen if I'm seen as an authority out there. Maybe I don't feel ready. I feel like I still have things to learn, or I don't have the infrastructure in place, or I don't have the right tools, or maybe you don't feel competent enough, right? So there may be something like that. Typically, that's self-judgment rather than truth, but there is things you can do to resolve that, right? You could get ready. You could just decide, I'm going to tune my message into the people I am ready to serve. You might be worried, which I think this is a really valid concern, but some people are so afraid of what's going to happen once they're visible. You might get attacked, or somebody might make fun of you, or they may have issues with what you're putting out in the world. I once was working with a client who her work was, she had been trained in someone else's modality, and she had some conflict about how to put her message out in the world and not be stepping on the toes of her mentor. And really what it was her own deep insecurity about it, because there's always ways to message things in a way that are authentic and aligned with your agreements. Sometimes people are afraid of that they're going to hurt someone. You're going to hear an interview coming up shortly where one of the mentors that came and joined me on the show, she literally had this deep-seated conflict about hurting someone that she had what she called an invisible agreement with. Very powerful. And we have this happen all the time. We have these deep-seated belief systems and limitations and stories and paradigms that we've locked into that are not necessarily the only way it can look, but it's the way you're looking at it. You may have some fear about putting your most authentic message out in the world, and it's keeping you in pause instead of progress. It's keeping you invisible instead of visible to the very people who need what you do. And at the root of this, I'm convinced that there's often unresolved trauma. And unresolved trauma can be anything to a painful moment, to horrible events that occurred that put you in fear of your life. I once worked with a woman many years ago who had been attacked in a very brutal way, and it was accidental, right? She wasn't even the intended victim, but because there had been a whole trial and everything, she was deeply traumatized and afraid for her life if she was more visible. And all of those things are real. I don't want to take away from anybody's experiences. I have my own traumas that have messed with my head and have kept me in a place where I was questioning for many years, like, am I good enough? Am I an imposter, right? Like, you have all this stuff that goes through your head. No one is immune to it, especially if you care. But here's what I would offer to you. First of all, internal conflicts are often not in your conscious awareness. You don't always know what the root of it is. You just know that there's a reason, you have a rationalization or some kind of logical excuse for not moving forward. But here's what I want to offer to you. If you are here, if you are doing the work, if you've been through training, if you know you have something that you're meant to share in a bigger way and you get paid to do the work that you do around this, you cannot afford to be a best kept secret. And it is time for you to release the energetic blocks and step into your brilliance and step into your magnetic message and get that out in a bigger way, because I guarantee you that visibility through a platform like a podcast or a stage is one of the most powerful ways to attract people who are ready to say yes. It shortens the path from awareness, they become aware of you, to purchase, because they can feel your energy and they know, like there's this knowing, like, oh my gosh, this person has something I'm interested in, and they will quickly start to reach out. Every time I am featured on a show, I get people who, yes, they follow my freebie or my lead magnet or my resource and get interested, but there's always people who say, how can I work with you? Now, there's a way to make that happen faster, and we're not going to cover that today, but if you go to my $1 million visibility framework at amplifywithmelanie.com, that's a free PDF that explains how the $1 million framework needs to be anchored in so that you are monetizing your visibility. That might help. But first of all, if you're in conflict, you're probably got a million reasons why you can't, you won't, you aren't ready. Everything else is going to be a bigger priority. And more importantly, you're probably dancing in and out of cash flow problems. And so your focus is always going to be, how do I get more cash in the door? Instead of planting the seeds that will sprout over time, which is what visibility does. Okay, so visibility, when done well, is constantly seeding the industry you're in and the communities that you want to serve, that I am here, this is what I do, this is how I help you solve the problem. And that visibility starts to gain momentum, and then you become the standout authority rather than the invisible best kept secret. Okay, so if you've got some deep inner conflict, just know, like, you're not alone. Whatever it is, whatever the root of it is, even if it's unresolved trauma, there are ways to get the support. I do a lot of it. I don't do psychotherapy, obviously, and that might be supportive for you if you've got very painful unresolved trauma. But start. Make a commitment and a decision today that your work in the world is so much more important than what's blocking you. And it's time to stand out. It's time to step up. It's time to start to dissolve the shackles that are holding you back. Okay, so that's conflict. Number 2 is, by the way, unresolved conflict is often disguised as the next 2. So sometimes the conflict, you're not aware what it is, but you'll find yourself in one of these next 2 barriers, which is keeping you from moving forward. So if you're recognizing one of these next 2 and you're like, well, why do I do that? Conflict might be the root of it. Okay, so the second one is being too busy. So let's face it, running a business and doing all the things, especially if it's just you at the helm, you're going to have a lot on your plate, and you might start to say to yourself, well, what are my hottest priorities? What are the things I need to do that I have to do to keep my business going, to serve my clients, right? And so getting into that prioritization quagmire, so to speak, can get tricky, because you know that being visible probably will help, but you never seem to have time. So then maybe you start to think to yourself, well, I'll just outsource. I'll get somebody else to pitch me. And I'm a huge fan of delegation, don't get me wrong. But if you delegate your visibility too early, you'll spend a lot of money and you won't get the ROI. You will not get the results. You will not get the clients. You will not get the authority momentum that I teach my clients about. Because ultimately, and this is happening right now for somebody in the 100K Authority Accelerator, and I just get so giddy, I get so excited, because literally what's happening is she's been following the process and she felt invisible for quite some time. And this is somebody who helps people make 7 figures. She gets them unstuck at 6 figures and moves them to 7 figures. And she was stuck. And what was happening is she just wasn't visible. She wasn't putting her content out. So she started following the formula that I laid out in my authority content system. And she's starting to get invitations to speak right away. And that's what happens when you do the things that perform well and you plant the seeds. So if you're busy, just know why. Like, why are you too busy to do this? Maybe you're not recognizing the full potential of what's possible. I guarantee you, if your leads are suffering, if you're not building your list, if you're not getting invitations to speak, you need to do this. So you may have some resistance to it. Again, that could be conflict, could be not having clarity about what's possible by doing this. Maybe you are so busy doing things right now that you are not producing visibility opportunities because people do not know what it is that you're good at. Another thing that happens is, I need to be more visible, but you don't make time. You don't make time, or you forget because you don't have a system to remind you to pitch yourself, to do the foundational authority content, to do the work around the messaging that gets you in front of more leads and more opportunities, right? So too busy, if you're like, oh my gosh, days, weeks, months literally scream by and I haven't done anything, then this is what you need to do. You need to have, I like to call it a budget. Okay, so when my clients in Authority Accelerator go through the program, the last 6 weeks are a visibility sprint. And what I'm doing there is I'm layering in a new habit of every week you take one action, whatever that action is. Some of them are going to take 5 actions, but at a minimum, you're taking one action. And that one action is pitching yourself, layering content, researching something that gets the visibility moving forward. So what I do, let me just share what works for me, is I have a list of what I call it my research list, or it's like my wish list. These are platforms that I believe are a good fit for my business and or my clients, because I'm always tracking like great shows for everybody in the Authority Accelerator and in the Authority Club. And what I do is I make sure that every week, usually on Monday afternoons or Tuesday afternoons, I am pitching, or I'm reaching out, or I'm following through on an invitation, right? Whatever that step is. Now, I do a lot less pitching these days and more connecting, more like I might explore like a show swap, or follow up on an invitation that somebody's made to me. But you have to have a spot in your calendar where this happens so that you don't forget to pitch yourself. You don't get into resistance. It is part of the routine rather than a anomaly that you have to find a spot for. And that's how you get past too busy. Now, the third visibility barrier that I see happen for a lot of people, and luckily there's so many great resources out there, is not knowing how. You don't know how to pitch yourself. You don't know how to find the right audiences, and you don't want it to be a waste of time. So you're like kind of stuck because you're like, well, how do I find out what platforms are right for me, or what shows are right for me, or how to get on the right stages, right? Or maybe you don't know what the message is that you should be putting out there. Let's talk about that for a minute. One of the things that I do for my clients is I help them figure out what their magnetic message is, what their brand positioning is, so that what they're putting out there actually builds this bridge rather than like a disconnect. So what happens if people don't resonate with your messages? You're probably putting posts on social media, you're maybe getting booked on shows, but nothing's coming out of it. And there's crickets instead of clients, right? So if you've got crickets, probably what's happening is one of the indicators is your messaging is not relevant, or it's not magnetic to the people you're wanting to pull in. That doesn't mean what you do isn't amazing. It just means the way you're messaging it is falling flat. And that's fixable. Okay. So another thing that can happen is you're doing a great job of the visibility. You're getting yourself out there, but you're not getting results. Well, or you're not getting the right results. Chances are you're getting on the wrong shows. You're getting on you're in front of audiences that are not resonating with what you talk about. And so it's just a big black hole, right? There's nothing good coming out of it. Or you literally just don't know how to put all the puzzle pieces together so that you're attracting leads that become clients. Or what do you do with the opportunity so that you're waking up all those dormant followers on social media? How do you make that one conversation with the host turn into a lifetime of leads and collaborations? Like, all of these things are possible if you know how. And this is how you turn being a guest expert into at least $100,000 or more a year. And what I consider $1 million visibility, because done well, that visibility should be paying off over and over and over again. Okay, whether you want to make $1 million or you just want to attract a regular stream of great clients, it doesn't matter. The system's the same. You can dial it up or dial it down. But I guarantee you, if you're not mastering profitable visibility, you are going to struggle with getting the right clients coming in, and you're going to work very hard to claim and stand out in a very crowded market full of people that sound just like you. So I would love to help be a part of the solution to this, because I've been doing this for 24 years. What I do works if you work the process. And everything starts with that free resource that I mentioned, my $1 million visibility framework. Kind of assess yourself. Look at, like, do I have the pieces? And you will find there is an invitation to join me for my upcoming How to Generate $1 Million Visibility for Your Business as an in-demand guest expert. I'm going to do the masterclass again live. You'll find your invitation when you go through that. Or if you've downloaded the resource before, you'll get an invitation. Or you could actually just go to melaniebenson.com/masterclass. It should be there as well. We'll link that up in the show notes when it's live. Whatever you do, make a commitment, a decision to create and generate the kind of visibility that pays off over and over and over again. Not only is it a massive productivity booster, but that's how you're going to win the business. That's how you're going to get the opportunities flowing your way. You've got something really amazing that needs to be out there. Be willing to take some bold action, stretch yourself a bit, dissolve the hidden visibility barriers, and get seen as the authority that you are. Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.